So thank you everyone for attending today's live webcast, 3 things you should do when building a cloud financial model. My name is Kim Harrison and I am the Market Development Manager here at Concerto Cloud Services, and I will be your moderator for today. Presenting on today's live webcast will be our special guest, Greg Pierce, Chief Cloud Officer at Concerto Cloud Services. Just a couple of housekeeping items before we get started. After the presentation, we will have a live Q&A period. To submit a question, click on the question button and type your question. We will try and answer as many questions as possible, and if not, we will happily respond to you after the webcast. For those of you who are interested in today's presentation, it will be made available to you via on-demand and will be posted on the Concerto Keep Calm webcast landing page for future viewing and sharing. Lastly, please provide your feedback. As you know, throughout these series, we value your feedback very much so, and at the end you'll have an opportunity to provide feedback and then also complete a survey for us. So with that, let's get started on today's live webcast. So we're going to go over the agenda for this morning. So what we have is we're obviously going to start with the experts, as we're saying. That's been a theme throughout our whole series, and what those experts are saying. The top 3 things you shouldn't do when building a cloud financial model. Some tips and tricks to a well-built model. So, we're going to also help you and with those tips and tricks as to where to start. And then we're going to go over Concerto Cloud Services at a glance, and then we'll go over the Q&A period. So when we're going to talk about what the experts are saying, so as you know, if you've joined us through the previous webcast, we like to start off by saying, and showing you a few quotes in what the experts are saying, and obviously the Gartners, the IDCs of the world, they are the experts in that area and be able to set trends for us to follow. So I'll give you a few minutes to read these on your own, but as you can see, cloud is not a fad, it's not going away, but rather it's the future. A large majority of partners now are building a cloud-first strategy, and building solid financial models is core to that success and that company growth. Without one, you stand to not see the risks, not see the opportunities ahead for you. As you can see with a subscription-based model as well, your organization has to think long-term. You're selling the value and the relationships that you can build with your customers, whether it be existing or net new. It's all about that relationship. It's all about that future customer, because that customer really, with cloud, becomes a customer for life. And so those are some important things. Now, I'm going to turn it over to our expert for today, Greg, to share with you some of the top 3 things you shouldn't do when building your cloud financial model. And this series is about educating and helping you as you onboard and as you look to the future of growing your own cloud or working with Concerto to build that cloud financial model. So over to you, Greg.
Thanks, Kim. And for those of you on the phone, I think that the slide Kim just reviewed is extraordinarily important. It's been pounded into our heads that we need to have a cloud strategy, that we need to have a focus on cloud for our customers. And I think there's been varying responses within the vendor community. And to a certain extent, a lot of us have been like the frog, the boiling frog, if you've ever heard that metaphor, where it's the frog sits in the pot and the water is slowly turned up to a boil over a long period of time, and before the frog knows it, the frog's being boiled. Hopefully the metaphor you get to the point I'm trying to get is that there's been a lot of cloud information, and there's been a lot of push and a lot of threats and or directives that we need to get more involved in cloud. But I think we've gotten to that point where the water's starting to boil. And if you haven't made a move to cloud and made a pragmatic move to cloud, then you're going to be in danger of falling behind and hurting your business. And it's not because anybody has a bad business. Look, it's a healthy market, and there's a lot of good things that are going on outside of cloud in the infrastructure space. The fact that people are still being successful delivering their on-premise solutions, however, actually makes it a little bit more difficult to make that transition. If you're having problems, it's super easy to look and say, hey, I have to find a solution to this problem. What is it? Okay, I have this new idea / go-to-market that I can embrace, and it's cloud, and I'm going to build a defensible solution around cloud. But one of the things that you certainly shouldn't do, I think, is stay in the past and stay in a environment where you're building infrastructure for on-premise and at best case avoid cloud, and even worse, actively work to keep cloud out of your customers. Whether we like it or not, cloud is a part of their future and is a part of IT as a fabric, and we can't stop that. We can't stop it from coming. We can't stop customers from being interested in it. So what we have to do is make sure that not only the solutions we have in place are the right ones and what we're telling our customers are the right things, but that we make all the changes internally that we need to be able to really provide an ongoing cadence around cloud. And I think that you want to do it not just in kind of stand up one day and say, hey, we're going to do cloud. I think you need to add a lot of different components to make sure it works right. It has to have, and really maybe from a high level, you want to build a business case. You want to show why this is going to be the right place to go. And we'll help you a little bit today with some different components that you should have within that business case. The absolute key and core piece to that business case is developing your vision, because nobody's vision should just be, hey, we're going to take things and move it to the cloud. Specialization is super important in this marketplace. And the specialization could be that you are the cloud with the highest SLA or the highest performance, or you are specific to an industry, you're specific to a certain compliancy or a lot of different compliancies, but being able to make sure that you stand out is important. The reason that the business case is important is that once you decide what that vision looks like, you're going to need to execute effectively, because if you don't, you're going to lose credibility internally. Salespeople don't like to sell things that don't work, that they have problems with from a delivery perspective. I was going to say don't work, but we'll be a little bit more maybe graceful about it. So really taking the time to plan up front is super important. I think that customers in general are looking to hybrid. So some of the things that may perhaps be in some of your wheelhouses for on-premise really tie into that hybrid model. There's no hybrid without on-premise or private cloud. And being able to understand private cloud makes it a logical extension to move forward. One of the things that I think should be a ray of hope is that I think it's somewhere near 50% of companies that are looking to move to cloud see their current incumbent VAR as the trusted advisor to tell them how to get there and to help them choose the right places. So I can tell you from our own experience that making the change from on-premise or from deployments of applications in a traditional format to one of cloud is not an easy undertaking. There's pain associated with it. Now, in our case, there was pain associated with the fact that we were also actually building a cloud platform at the same time and building automation pieces and making sure that we had the right operational structure and cadence in place. If you're looking to go to cloud now and have a cloud strategy and have a cloud offering for customers, a lot of that underneath work is done. That's not to say that it's easy now, maybe easier than the early days, because some of the, I guess the wagons have moved west and some of the roads are a little bit more paved. But you still need to make sure that you have solid support in place. There's nothing worse than getting everybody excited, creating a great go-to-market strategy, and you have the right web presence, you have the right assets to support both sales and pre-sales. You have really defensible positions that you can articulate with customers. They're excited about it, and then they go and utilize your offering, and it doesn't work. They don't get a response after hours. They don't get the right sort of solution when they call in, or things that were promised on the front end aren't delivered. I think with cloud, that the best advice I could give is not to get too I used the covered wagon a second ago, so I'll stick with the same analogy. Get too cowboyish. Stay within guardrails. Pick the things you're going to do. Get really, really good at them. Make sure they're specialized. Now, look, it doesn't mean that nobody else in the world is doing it. That's really hard to find. But specialized enough that it's a difficult skill to acquire and a difficult to find vendors who can provide that level of service. And then go ahead and charge forward. Now, to charge forward, you have to make sure that things internally change. You need to change, in a lot of ways, your compensation structure. Sales reps are not going to change overnight. They're creatures of habit. They want to continue to sell the things that they've sold in the past. So you need to incent them to go ahead and look for the monthly recurring revenue, which is something that is also beneficial for you as a business, or in the case of business owners as well. The compensation changes can't only be isolated to sales. It has to be transcendent across the organization. It has to include executives. It has to include people that are in the operational delivery piece. For example, what we do is, if you're from a traditional billable engagement model, people usually have billable targets to hit and so forth. We actually have the exact same bonus structure for everybody in operations, and all of it revolves around customer satisfaction and uptime. Were we up for the 4 nines that we promise our customers? If no, nobody gets paid. If yes, everybody gets paid, which, by the way, for us, most of the time everybody gets paid on those sort of things. But I think having that kind of singular focus and an appeal to the organization as a whole instead of individual accomplishment can be really important when you're starting to deliver an ongoing cadence with customers to make sure that you're providing the services that they require. And look, I think that a lot of you already have specialization that you've built on. You've built on being good at professional services or healthcare or whatever it is. And this is a logical extension of it that you can take and build and add technology to make sure that it makes sense. So I think that we're in technology, so we're always programmed to have the answers. In this case, it's really difficult to have all the answers. AWS just had their most recent reInvent conference out in Las Vegas. And I think back to when software was, there was a new release of, say, Windows Server every 4 years, and it would have, say, 50 or 100 new features, and you would take the time to learn it. Then you would do a few proof of concept deployments, and then you were deploying it in actual production environments probably about 6 months later. So fast forward to today, and AWS has released 1,000 new features this year, year to date. Right? How could anybody with an organization, an IT group, unless their core focus is just cloud, know every single one of those 1,000 changes? And more importantly, which ones to position in front of customers, which ones make the most sense. For example, AWS has a component whereby you can deploy in certain data centers that are underpopulated and you pay less money. If you don't know that ahead of time and somebody else does and they come in 30% lower, you're going to lose and you won't even know why you lost. So now more than ever, being able to, doubt our own fallibility, that we understand that we need help from other people, that other organizations are more dedicated to cloud, I think makes a lot of sense. In the end, your customers are going to rely on you to be able to articulate these cloud messages, but I wouldn't just jump into it all alone. We have a nice quote from one of our partners who's an ISV software vendor. They've been around. They're probably pretty unique in the software industry. They've been around since the late 60s and have changed their business model over time. So they get the whole idea of changing paradigms. And they were looking for a cloud partner with us that matched the business that they had with their customers, one where it was quality, it wasn't necessarily driven by a race to the bottom from a price perspective. And each of you needs to look at the same things. What kind of business do you have? Is it a commodity business where you're looking at a ton of volume? In that case, there's partners that make sense. Is it more of a business where these apps can never, ever go down? It's mission critical. Things are super important to the customer, and that's what they're giving you. Basically, they're paying you to take risk. That's a different type of partner entirely. These days, more often than not, you're looking at a multi-cloud strategy. Multi-cloud means that you're likely going to have a couple different, maybe even more, cloud providers you're working with based on different types of workloads and to a certain extent what industry they may be in. One of the things that we like to do with our partners is build out a financial model with them right up front. And it does a few things. This isn't a kind of a rah-rah cheerleader thing where we're trying to say, hey, look at all the money you're going to make. And we want everybody to go into this with eyes wide open. And it is an attractive model, but it's an attractive model after about 1.5 years, because in the beginning stages, you've had all sorts of billable work you've done and engagements that include upfront software and upfront purchases of capital, and that goes away. The margins are better, but the revenue in the front end is lower. So you get this kind of cash flow trough for a period of time while your company's catching up. Now, some of that can be made up a little bit faster if you possibly add in some different components and still have some upfront billable work, which we'd recommend that you have some upfront billable work still as well. But then as you move forward into the actual financial model, what you find is that your company becomes one where there's so much more predictability. You know exactly what we call falling out of bed money is when you get up in the morning, and the amount that you can count on and rely on every single month. You probably by that point have a pretty good idea what your attrition rate is going to be, so you can factor that in on a going forward basis as a percentage of your revenue. And then you can look and see what kind of ads you normally have from a perspective of new customers. Now, the one thing that I think customers or partners fall out of, which is really important, is making sure you continue to find new revenue opportunities within the customer base once you bring them on board. So the focus can't just be, hey, we're going to take this customer, we're going to make them a cloud customer, this is going to be great, we're going to make a lot of money, and then 1.5 years in, you've kind of forgotten that customer until it's time for renewal. It's time to think about that customer, we think, every 30 days at a minimum. Make sure that you're engaged with them, because there's so much more that is within their data center that you can become the trusted advisor for. And once they understand that you can deliver, first of all, the proper architecture and the right design work for their system, you brought it over and it's working the right way when it's in cloud, and you've provided a really great experience for them on an ongoing basis, they're going to try to find other things to bring to you. And if you have the right offerings, it just makes a ton of sense. Now, if you disengage with them, they're going to kind of forget that you do these things. So let's jump into a few tips and tricks to build out the right model. These are things that we've hit on already, but I want to make sure that everybody's clear on what we need to have in place. And what you need to do is make sure that you've engaged on a strategy that's not only, I think, where cloud is a part of your strategy, but it becomes one of the main, if not the main focus. For us, we thought about it like burning the boats on the shore. It was just time to tell customers it doesn't make sense to be in your own data center business anymore. Let's take things and let's move it to the cloud. To make sure that there's not kind of traps along the way or that people trip, create a clear financial model up front so everybody's on the same page. Nobody needs to be surprised that there's a cash flow trough in month 6 if you budget it out ahead of time, because everybody knows 12 months later, everything looks a lot better, and actually you're making more money, you have more cash flow at that time, so you know where you're going. And look, if you don't believe me on that, Adobe decided probably, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, that they were going to move to a cloud-only model. And the day they did, their revenue dropped, I think, by 30%, and their stock went up by 60%, because the investors understood that it was the right model. It was just going to take a little bit of time for them to get there. Make sure you certainly have the right go-to-market strategy that ties to what your core competencies are, and then make sure you're really good at it, because all the great marketing information in the world cannot make up for a lack of ability to deliver, or a lack of ability for subject matter experts to really show how good your company is once you engage with a customer. Make sure you have that ironed out ahead of time. I think that you'd want to make sure when you engage with a cloud partner that it's somebody who's partner friendly, and that they have a strong channel program. They're going to invest with you. They're going to help you and hold your hand through the process. They've been there, done that, and they understand kind of the pain that you're going to have to go through along the way. So as you start painting your vision and you're looking at what the geography footprint looks like, and what your vertical market looks like, and what your target customers are going to be, build out your execution plan, and then figure out what the gaps are, and be honest with yourself about the gaps. Determine what the steps are you need to put in place, what kind of training you need to have. Make sure that people are doing research and they understand the cloud market. And one thing I'll tell you is that one of the struggles we had early on was just getting people to have the appropriate cloud conversation, as silly as it sounds. For probably 8 months after we started and built out our own cloud platform, people were still having conversations that sounded kind of on-premise-y, and it takes a little while to get over that. So the more you can, and we probably could have done a better job for sure up front, making sure that we train people on how to have the right conversation. So those are the sort of things that you can avoid if you have the right information and intellectual capital invested with your cloud partner, whoever it happens to be, up front. So let me tell you a little bit about us, and then we'd love to answer questions. We're a fully managed cloud provider. We work with our partners to manage as much or as little of the cloud as they need. For us, really we built this based on being an application-centric cloud platform for mission-critical workloads. That means for us it's built on quality technologies, high performance, high SLA, with partners that are in the gold plate of the technology ecosystem, like Equinix and Cisco and NetApp and Microsoft and AWS. We have a partner network that is 2 years, and now it's over 60 partners strong. And we have really positioned ourselves as a group that gets the hard stuff and is able to take risk away for partners and the customers that partners have.
So perfect. Thanks, Greg. That was great, by the way. Great information we shared with our partners today. So we're going to open it up now for questions. So I'd like to remind everyone that if you have a question, to submit it via the question button, and I'll give you a moment to type in your questions. So if you can type in your questions now, that would be great. All right, so we have one that's come in. I've heard horror stories of people going to the cloud and heard it was more expensive. Is that true?
So you can't really say that, you can't make generalizations when it comes to ROI for cloud. There's some cloud platforms that would be more expensive than on-premise, and then there's many that are less expensive and more cost-effective when you factor in the trade-offs that a customer would have around labor required to do updates and labor required to do DBA and so forth. I think what really is important is to look at it from the standpoint of what's your tolerance for risk. And there are cloud providers that are flat monthly fee. If you're on the lower end of the financial risk. In other words, you're going to get a lot of egg on your face. If you say it's going to be X and it turns out to be X plus Y, I would go with the flat monthly type engagement. If your appetite for risk is higher, then you can look at one of the consumption-based cloud platforms where you pay for what you use and see where that lands. I think that there's just really different, there's so much density in the cloud space right now that you have to sit down and do an individual TCO to determine exactly what the price or the trade-off is.
Okay, perfect. And just feel free to keep typing. There's a few earlier questions, so I'm just reading those now. Is financial modeling part of your partner program, and is that standard in the industry?
Financial modeling is part of our partner program. I don't think it's standard in the industry. Some others may do it, but we spend a lot of time and a lot of money to build this out. What we were trying to do when we put it together is make sure it is it's real, that it actually shows not only for partners, but we also have it for our partner customers, that it actually shows what they're doing and how they can get there.
So perfect. That's all that we have questions, that we have time for questions today.
Okay.
So I just want to say that was wonderful, and on behalf of Greg Pierce and the Concerto Cloud Services team, I'd like to thank everyone for attending today's live webcast. We hope to see you on the next live webcast, and all of these will, and the entire series will actually be posted on concertocloud.com/keepcalm/webcast. So thank you to everybody who's joined us for the entire series, and we look forward to working with you in the future. And once again, if you need anything, please don't hesitate to reach out. We're going to put the screen back up where we have emails there. So really your next steps are evaluate the 4 quadrants, your vision and how to realize that. You know, don't go it alone, as Greg said to you. Choose a channel partner where financial planning is core. Cloud education, sales, training is core to their partner onboarding program. Those essentials to get you going is core. And if you choose Concerto, that's fantastic, even better. So how you want to engage with us next, I just want to call out that we would like you to go to our survey. You can go there. Our survey is online. Also, again, see the webcast in the future. Go to keepcalm/webcast. Where you registered is where you'll be able to see the on-demand, and feel free to share that with you and your colleagues. And then, of course, we are always available for reaching out. You can reach out to Greg Pierce at concertocloud.com. You can reach out to him directly. And also, we have a standard one here, partner@concertocloud.com. So on that note, everybody, just like to thank you once again for everything and for attending, and have a great day.